Hello and welcome to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Well, entrepreneurship is on the rise and women are driving most of that activity. Even though historically women have controlled the majority of purchasing decisions, we still have a ways to go to see that purchasing power transform into full representation at the boardroom table. Becoming your own boss is one way women are increasingly taking to close the gap in leadership and pay. The good news is research suggests that women are poised to have a breakout decade in 2020. Women now account for 28% of all entrepreneurs in Canada and are growing at a rate of 3.1 times faster than men. And over the past 40 years, the number of female entrepreneurs has quadrupled. Now, women face different types of obstacles than their male counterparts in starting and growing a business. These include less access to financing, smaller networks, fewer mentors, and unconscious bias. On tonight's show, I am so pleased to welcome a powerhouse panel of guests who will share how they navigate some of these challenges, how you can as well, and they'll also be discussing the secrets of their success so far. First, I am so delighted to introduce to you Sheena Brady. She's the founder of Teas Teas, empowering women one cup of tea at a time. Sheena built Teas Teas from scratch into $1 million company, serving customers in more than 30 countries, with a portion of proceeds from every order supporting its Give Back program. Part of that Give Back program includes the Founders Fund. That's Canada's first online growth accelerator, supporting women identifying entrepreneurs through mentorship, resources, and non-repayable financing to grow their business. Welcome to the show, Sheena.
It's such a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Barbara.
Next, I'd like to welcome Naomi Haile. She's a community builder, speaker, and the host of the Power of Why podcast, an interview-style show with purpose-driven leaders. She's also the co-founder of Find Your Tribe, an organization that prepares millennial professionals of color to take their seat at the table. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks for having me.
Later on in the show, we will be joined by Sonia Shorey, Vice President at Invest Ottawa and Bayview Yards, and award-winning entrepreneur Nita Tandon, so make sure that you stick around for that. And as always, if you have any questions for our guests, please call 613-728-1001. They're excited to hear from you. Sheena, I'd like to start with you. Your path to entrepreneurship hasn't been a straight line, and nor has it been an easy journey. Tell us a little bit about what that has looked like for you.
Definitely. I think it is in the earliest days, in the infancy of Teas Tea, it was often looked at as this cute side hustle, this hobby, for lack of better words, and I think I got the impression that what I was trying to do was incredibly underestimated. Even when I would, go to trade shows, I'd have people walk by and they'd say, "Oh, my friend is actually a rep for this company too," assuming that I was representing an MLM company, that it couldn't possibly be my own company at this trade show. So I think that was an interesting part of my journey that kind of led to some confidence challenges, of course, and so those are some of the non-tangible barriers, I guess you could say. And then, of course, on the tangible side, lack of access to capital, which I'm sure many women entrepreneurs can relate to as well, has been an interesting journey.
And I think I remember reading that you had financed your business with something like $1,000.
Yes, that's one of the most surprising things that I share from time to time, is that we did our first $500,000 in revenue with a $1,000 credit card limit. And so, as much as that might sound impressive on the surface of this iceberg, underneath it was just a hot mess of challenges of how to actually grow your business and scale it effectively with that lack of access to capital.
And of course, you're also facing that sort of condescending attitude from people. "Oh, look, isn't that cute? Sheena's starting a business."
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Naomi, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so mainly the work that we're doing right now with Find Your Tribe is about building a community for professionals of color. And it's really focused on professional development. So we've done a lot of programming around workshops, preparing people around how to build credibility in the workplace, how to, pitch, for example, how to, communicate effectively in the workplace too. And so that was essentially came about when, throughout school, I was oftentimes the only Black girl, for example, and that I started university at 16.
That's impressive.
I was always the youngest one in the room, and oftentimes I felt very undermined. And it's never outright, it was always subtle. And I had that same transition when I was entering the workplace. I finished at 20, I started immediately in my full-time role, and I don't know, I had feelings of not feeling like I ever belonged, and it was always me trying to adjust myself so that I fit in and was accepted for what other people thought that was, and that was never me. And so, last year, take me back 14 months, I met my co-founder of Find Your Tribe. Her name is Sam, and we instantly connected on our shared experiences being women of color in the workplace and what that was like around feeling included, and also, advancement and promotional opportunities in the company, people sponsoring you. That's a huge thing that we've started to learn. And so for us, we wanted to create a space for people to come, feel like they belong, and then also talk about how we can actively build our skills.
What are some of the patterns you hear, some of the ongoing challenges you hear from women in your community in terms of being taken seriously, having confidence, being able to maybe take those initial steps to start a business?
Mm-hmm. And I think Sheena also touched upon it. I mean, over 60% of our community to date are entrepreneurs. They are running their own businesses. And so
you mean women of color?
Women of color,
yeah,
exactly.
60%. Wow.
Yeah, of our community base right now. And, since conception, we've expanded, and we don't just service women of color now, we're opened it up to professionals of color and allies. And so, engaging other people in the conversation to get comfortable dialogues going, because this is oftentimes not a comfortable subject. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of, people not wanting to step on toes around questions to be asked. So we've really tried to be conscious about creating a space where people can learn, and there's opportunities to have those conversations.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Sheena, tell me a little bit about Founders Fund. Mm-hmm. What is it? How do you apply? What's involved?
I loved everything that you've just shared, Naomi, because the Founders Fund really has a foundation that's based on a lot of those important values that you shared. I think accessibility is a really big one, and being able to build a program that can be accessible throughout the country. So whether you're in rural Saskatchewan or downtown Toronto, you can access the same mentorship and resources as everyone at an accessible price point. And so it's very much this invest in yourself while pay it forward model. It's a membership, and so it's a $225 annual membership fee. $125 goes directly into that non-repayable funding pool, so you can be an early stage entrepreneur and know that even you can, at this point in this stage in your journey, invest in other businesses. So more than half of your membership fee is going to that pool, and the other half is supporting all the mentorship and resources and operational costs that go behind making it happen. And so we're really fortunate about the mentors that we're working with. We have some incredible mentors. We have Harley Finkelstein from Shopify, who's the COO, who's joining us. We have Komal Minas, who's an angel investor and interviewer. She recently interviewed Michelle Obama, which is actually really cool right here in Ottawa, and several other mentors who are paying it forward with their time, which is great. And I think on your point about the importance of representation as well is extremely important. And we've been very intentional with all of our decisions with the Founders Fund to date, and making sure that it accurately reflects the entrepreneurial landscape of Canada. And so when we have our mentors and when we have our funders involved and everyone, we want to make sure that it accurately paints the picture, because you can't be what you can't see oftentimes, and that's why the representation is so important.
So can anyone be a member of the Founders Fund?
So the memberships are open to women identifying entrepreneurs. We do invite anyone to purchase memberships. In terms of participating in the mentorship sessions or anything like that, we ask that they're gifted to women identifying entrepreneurs, because that's really what we're curating these resources for, because we want to continue to boost the amount of Canadian women entrepreneurs in this country. Like you mentioned, 28% in Canada are women, but only 16% are majority-owned businesses by women. And so we still have a lot of work to do on that regard. And studies show time and time again that if we have more gender diversity within leadership teams and within entrepreneurship, we have the ability to create companies that are more profitable, more innovative, and also generate more revenue. So it's good for the economy too. It's good for everyone.
It's great for your bottom line. line. Now, if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to tap into some of that funding and some of those resources and mentorship, is it a competitive process? Do I need to apply? Like, I imagine there's only so much funding to go around.
Yes, so we do have limited memberships available for 2020, and so basically with that membership, at minimum, you're getting access to up to 20 hours of online mentorship sessions. You will also have an opportunity to get peer-to-peer mentor matching. So let's say Naomi and I are at the same stage of business, but we don't know each other. The Founders Fund might introduce us and say, hey, meet Naomi. Naomi meets Sheena, you're at similar stages. We want to introduce you to each other so you can become accountability partners, have masterminds together, and creatively brainstorm through your challenges so you don't feel as isolated. Because I think, again, being an entrepreneur can be incredibly isolating at times, right? And so that's another benefit of becoming a member. And then finally, you can apply for the funding as well, which opens up in the spring. And so there is a limited amount, but what I think is really unique about the Founders Fund is that even if you're not successful in receiving the funding that you're applying for, you will receive application feedback. So at times when you're applying for grants and everything, one thing that's frustrating is you apply and you just hope for the best and fingers crossed, and you either get a rejection letter, which is unfortunately the majority of the time, or if you're fortunate, then perhaps you receive some funding. With the Founders Fund, we're taking it to the next level, and we are bringing together entrepreneurs, again, paying forward their time to actually score these applications and give feedback. So helping to identify areas of opportunity, perhaps unidentified blind spots, things that maybe the entrepreneur's doing incredibly well, but they're not giving themselves enough credit for.
That's fantastic, and it's more difficult to get that feedback than it should be, I think. Now, Naomi, you're part of the cohort for 2020, is that right?
I will be.
Tell me a little bit about what you hope to get out of the program.
Yeah, I think, in and above just the funding that is accessible, I think more importantly is the mentorship. And Sheena mentioned a few of the people, but what I love about the lineup is how diverse they are. They're all in different industries. I've met Kamal in person, and she's fantastic.
She really is.
And I think, part of the importance of having a diverse team, Sheena's team is quite diverse, not just besides the mentors, but the people who are putting together the programming, is that, when we, people of color, women of color don't have a seat at the table, oftentimes innovation doesn't service our communities. And so the stuff that you've outlined, it's because you've taken the time to listen to, the needs of different groups as well. And so for me and what I've been hearing from my community as well, we're super excited around, access to mentors and being able to, get tangible, very custom advice around how we can scale and grow our businesses and our communities while doing the same. So.
And that customized advice I find is so valuable, because often you kind of get a lot of the fluffy stuff, like if you have a dream, you should go for it, but it doesn't really mean anything to you in your daily life. I want to hear more about your journey through entrepreneurship, both of you, and how you've navigated some of those challenges. Sheena, you've brought up isolation, and Naomi, you've brought up women of color having a seat at the table. We're just about to go to break, so when we come back, lots more. Don't go away. Hi, welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're in the studio tonight with special guests Naomi Hyla and Sheena Brady, talking about female entrepreneurship, being your own boss, and navigating some of the challenges that pop up along the way. Don't forget to call 613-728-1001 if you have any questions to ask our guests. Now, just before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about the Founders Fund, Sheena, and I just wanted to ask you, how much funding is up for grabs for the people who do apply?
Yes, so members can apply for up to $50,000 in non-repayable funding for their business. So that means, no equity, zero interest, don't pay us back. It's basically part of the pay it forward model.
No strings attached.
No strings attached. Yeah, just that break that we all need sometimes.
We have a caller on the line. Steve, are you with us?
Yeah.
Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for calling in. Did you have a question for our guests?
I do. My wife and I are both employed, self-employed together, and I just want to know, what's the best way that I can approach a situation where they don't look to me as the person who's the boss, and can direct that towards my wife without it looking like I'm trying to do something weird. You know what I mean?
Naomi, it seems like it's a hot button topic with you. What are your thoughts?
No, it resonates deeply, and I think, some opportunities for you is to, say if it's an area of expertise for your wife, to say, my wife can answer this more effectively than I can. I think, oftentimes we don't need people to speak on behalf of us, but we do need the platform for us to raise and have the confidence enough to speak for ourselves. And, even with the community that we've built, I think sometimes people think that I can speak on behalf of all Black people, and that's not the case, but we want to build a platform where people feel empowered and inspired to speak for themselves. So I think giving your wife as much opportunity to say, hey, this is actually her area of expertise, and I think people will respect that, and it's admirable. So,
Sheena, any thoughts on
that
this?
That was so well said. I have nothing to add. I think you're so right about giving the space. Don't speak up for them, just give them the platform to speak for themselves. Yeah.
Thank you so much for calling in, Steve. That's a segue to a question I wanted to bring up as well, in terms of the importance of building your support network and marrying well. And of course, I don't mean marrying well in the sense of marrying someone with a lot of money, but being with someone who doesn't dim your light and allows you the ability to go out and do the things that are important to you, that holds the fort, for example, if you've got, housework and kids and things like that. What are your thoughts on that, Sheena?
My business I wouldn't be who I am today without my husband because of that. I've got a very strong support at home and the epitome of allyship in every sense. In fact, my husband was my first employee at TST.
Wow. And
he quit his very stable pension job at the National Research Council to support my dream full time. That's how I knew I was going to marry him. But I couldn't speak I can't stress enough how important it is to have that support.
I mean, if that's not a vote of confidence, I don't know what is. What do you think, Naomi?
Well, I'm not married, but I understand the importance of having people who support you in your life. I mean, and allow you to shine, and you doing the same for your husband as well, because it's a partnership. Absolutely. And I think, surrounding yourself with people who believe in your vision and who are there along the way is incredible. We're not meant to do any of this alone. So
now, Naomi, you have a mantra about collaboration over competition. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Even I think it became more true for me when we started building the community. I have a dear friend who, when we first met, he said, when people realize that there's enough room for everyone to succeed, collaboration becomes culture. And what I've been grown to appreciate as part of communities, and I'd love for you to speak on this as well, is we are strong together. We are, in partnerships and speaking with people who have partnerships, whether it's in business or in life, having your strengths and partnering with someone who has, differing strengths, but, you are able to run the race and be stronger by collaborating, by being part of a community that believes in you. And so, yes, collaboration over competition is the way that we can continue. And what I love about the Founders Fund is that you're cognizant about that, and your team is stronger because you're focused so much on collaboration.
Thank you. And I think, collaboration over competition is such a great mantra, by the way. I love that. And I think you hit on something really important too, that we have an obligation. I hate this problematic idea that we have amongst women where there's not enough room at the top and we have to compete against each other to get there.
And sometimes you see a lot of infighting where you would expect to see support.
Right, exactly. And when I heard Michelle Obama speak in Ottawa recently, an interesting point that hit home with me is that she shared that it's actually our responsibility to make sure that if we have the spotlight at any given moment, that we take a step out of the spotlight and give it to someone else, and we share it. And we have a very important obligation to do that. And I think that kind of ties into your mantra, very well.
Beautiful concept. We have a caller on the line. Andrea, are you with us?
Hi, yes, I am.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much for calling in. Did you have a question for our guests?
I do. What would be a good baby step to start my own business? And should I hire a coach of some sort or anything like that?
What do you think, Sheena?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think some people believe that it's important to go all in on your dream. I don't. I think that it's perfectly okay to experiment and get started and just, keep your full-time job if it's not a barrier to you actually having time to contribute to your business. And if your full-time job is a barrier to you starting your business, then maybe you might want to find a different type of stable income that is more flexible to allow you to start your business and grow your business. I don't believe in this idea that you have to be, very risky and go all in right away. I think it's important to strive for progress over perfection.
So it's okay to start as a side hustle and then evolve it into something bigger along the way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Naomi? I know you're a big believer in creating your own opportunities, and obviously that's going to look different for different people.
Yeah, because currently right now I do have a full-time job, and on the side is where I do the podcasting and the community building that we're turning into a business. And so I think can we ask what industry are you in and what are you working on?
Andrea, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Right now, nothing. I'm just I'm interested in building crafts and stuff like that, kind of like a small type of business.
Yeah, and I would say, reach out to start sharing your work online. I mean, a lot of the stuff, oftentimes when you share it online or write or, even put the phone to your face and do a little video around what you're working on, you'll have people messaging you and reaching out to and seeing I want to buy something off of you, for example. And so a lot of the stuff that we've been doing is because we've been so active online and sharing with our network what our activities are, and people have reached out to us directly and asked for more. And so start small, start documenting what you're working on, just show pictures of your crafts and see if it picks up for sure. You don't have to leave your job full time and to pursue this. But
I think also, which you touched on a bit too, is just finding that network to tap into that makes sense for you. Maybe I love co-working spaces today because they're their own little buzzing hive and community, and sometimes you can get a lot of business just from that own community of the co-working space that you work in, for example, or with the Founders Fund, for example, or with the incredible work that you're doing. There's so many different networks that you can be able to tap into to not only help build your own business or your own network, or maybe even to just figure it out what you want to do and how you want to do it, and bounce those ideas off people.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for calling in, Andrea. I want to talk about financial literacy because we know it's a huge problem. Women continue to be a very vulnerable group in terms of money management skills and things like that. Sheena, I know you wanted to speak to this topic as well in terms of some of the barriers that you grappled with when you were starting your business.
Absolutely. It was a barrier for way longer than it should have been. I wish I knew now what I knew then. And actually, one of your guests that's coming up shortly, Nita, said something at a panel last night that really struck me. It was something like her 5 unexpected lessons of entrepreneurship, and one of them was good credit is better than a good business plan. And it's so true because, and this is when we talk about tangible barriers with women are statistically less likely to take on unessential debt. So meaning they won't take out an extra credit card if they don't have to. They won't take out an extra loan if they don't have to. And so what happens is that if they end up starting a business, they might not have a healthy credit file. It might not necessarily be bad credit, but it's just there's no track record of credit because they've been avoiding taking it on. So they have this negative perception of debt that ends up, unfortunately working against them later. And so in my experience, it was exactly that. That's why I had a hard time working with my bank to get capital for my business because I had a very thin credit file. I had a great business plan, had a profitable company, I had purchase orders, and it was a challenge. And I remember at one point wanting to switch banks, and my bank got so frustrated with me. They were giving me business cards to other banks. I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And I found BDC actually at that point. And what was great about working with BDC is that they're the bank exclusively for entrepreneurs. And my account manager she's now my account manager, came to my office at that time and actually got to know me and got to know the entrepreneur behind the business and got to know the numbers and actually taught me the importance of how to actually read balance sheets correctly, how to speak like a banker to bankers so that they can advocate for you to their underwriters, for example, because I was just sliding all the paperwork to my old bank and just hoping for the best. Yeah. But it was much more deeper than that. And so I was super grateful for the mentorship that I got from BDC in the process. And so to this day, I think that financial literacy barrier was too long of a barrier, and I wish I could have navigated that better years ago.
It's amazing that you never get taught this in school. I have a business degree, and I don't remember learning about any of this stuff. Now, we only have 2 minutes left until the end of our time together, sadly, but Naomi, I wanted to give you a chance to leave any parting thoughts you had for our viewers, anything else that you wanted to address that we haven't had time to touch on yet in our time together. To
go back to the point around creating your own opportunities, I think there's so much power in connecting to the different hubs that are in Ottawa, whether it's a community that you identify with, whether it's Invest Ottawa and all the programming that they have there. Sonia's going to come on and share a little bit more. But I think there's just so much power in learning about people and building relationships and sharing what your vision and your dreams are, and you never know how you can support other people and how they can support you as well. So get involved in your community.
Wonderful. And any final thoughts for our viewers, Sheena?
That was so well said. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Where can we find you? Where can our viewers find you?
Yes, absolutely. So you can become a member of the Founders Fund at foundersfund.ca and just learn all about the incredible resources. We even have free resources available right now if you're not sure about becoming a member yet.
And where can we find you and listen to your podcast and join Find My Tribe?
So Find Your Tribe you can find on Instagram, are most active. The Power of Why you can find everywhere that you listen to podcasts, so iTunes, Spotify, The Power of Why with Naomi Haile.
Do you have anything coming up with your podcast?
So the episode with Kamal came out earlier this year, and I'm trying to get episodes out every week, so we can see that there.
Looking forward to that. We'll definitely check that out. I want to thank you so much, both ladies, for coming on the show and sharing your expertise. It's been a real treat. Thank you so much once again. When we come back after the break, we'll be joined by Sonia Shorey from Invest Ottawa and Nita Tandon from Delchini Stainless Steel. Don't go away. We'll be right back with lots more on how to start your own business as a female entrepreneur. Hi, and welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're discussing female entrepreneurship in the studio tonight with a powerhouse panel of guests. Joining us now are Sonia Shorey, Vice President of Strategy, Marketing and Communications for Invest Ottawa and Bayview Yards. Invest Ottawa is the lead economic development agency for knowledge-based industries in Ottawa, and Bayview Yards is like a one-stop business acceleration shop. Thank you so much for joining us, Sonia.
Thank you for having me.
And next we have Nita Tandon. Nita is the founder and CEO of Delchini Stainless, a multi-award-winning company dedicated to healthy and sustainable housewares. She has been featured on a variety of television shows and was selected for the MTV Movie Awards Gifting Suite. Nita is the winner of the 2016 National Mompreneur Startup Award. In 2018, she also earned a spot in the top 25 female-owned ventures in Canada. Welcome to the show, Nita.
Thank you for having me.
Nita, I wanted to start with you. If you could maybe share your journey with us and tell us a little bit about your company. You've honored my request to do a little bit of show and tell today. You've brought us a sample of what you do. Tell us about that.
Well, it started, I first started in the pharmaceutical industry, so I was working in healthcare and pharma for about 20 years. I left in 2009. And it was around that time that Health Canada banned BPA, but they only banned BPA in baby bottles. Well, and then 2010, I had my daughter, and there was so much plastic that I just felt like I needed to have an alternative. If I didn't want to have the chemicals and I didn't want to have the amount of plastic that was ending up in landfills, what was my alternative? And so when I looked around my home, I actually had a cup that I had had for 40 years. So this was sort of my start. I thought if restaurants, if hospital, the surgical tables, all the hospital instruments are always stainless steel, and they're done because it's naturally antibacterial. So I thought, well, why can't we do lunch containers and cups and everything in a high quality stainless steel, which is 100% sustainable and naturally antibacterial? So that was my start. And I decided to design them. I outsourced. I decided to find the right manufacturer. And when I went looking for assistance, I just, it was similar to what the guest previously said. There was a lot of, oh, that's really nice. That's nice that you're doing. Did you think of setting up a table at a craft sale, or there's a market coming up? And I just felt they didn't really see the vision that I had. And yes, I was starting slow because I'm not a risk taker, so I really wanted to start with 2 products. But from the get-go, my dream was much bigger than 2 products. And I found it very, very frustrating. The nice thing, though, is when I went to my first trade show, the people that organized the trade show loved the product. And so I'd only been selling the product for 2 weeks at that point. And someone came by and said, you need to enter such and such contest. We think you could win this. And at that point, I didn't even know anything about selling, entrepreneurship. I was so early in my journey. But I went ahead and I applied. And when I won, I think that was the turning point for me, which it was being, my business plan was being evaluated by a number of different people in various industries. And when they gave me the okay, I think that was when I finally said, I think I can do this.
I think I've made it.
I think it wasn't even that I made it, it's just that I feel like I got the pat on the back, like, you've got a good plan. When I initially started, I didn't get that. Yeah. And so then it was just the move forward.
It was the break that you needed.
It was the break that I needed.
Sonia, tell us a little bit about what you do at Invest Ottawa.
So Invest Ottawa, as you beautifully mentioned, is lead economic development agency, and we really do two things. We help grow companies up from within our ecosystem from very early stage, a host of different sectors, in the hopes that we can help them to scale along their journey. We also have a team, and this really differentiates us, our global expansion team. They go out into the Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific markets, and they look for companies, investment, and talent that can relocate to Ottawa to fill in gaps here in our ecosystem to help strengthen our economy, create new jobs. And so by putting those two together, we have a suite of programs and services for a host of entrepreneurs and firms in different stages of development that are helping to add value and create that accelerated growth path. In particular, and I'm so inspired by all the women here this evening, you've done a beautiful job. We work with entrepreneurs that are very, very early stage, Main Street entrepreneurs. So if you have a bakery, a restaurant, a bricks and mortar business, we have our Small Business Enterprise Center that's led by an incredible woman named Paula, where we offer free education literally every single day of the year at Bayview Yards. So you can come and benefit from a host of different training sessions delivered by experts from industry that often partner with us in different ways, get free access to advisors and mentors, including some incredible immigrant entrepreneurs like Carla Briones, who is one of my favorite people in the world. She's just doing marvelous things. We also have for technology-based businesses, and a large part of our public funding is derived and focused on those knowledge-based jobs that are created through scaling technology firms.
I've seen some of those services available online, and it's really fantastic that it's accessible and it's free. And I want to hear more about that, but first we have a caller on the line. Yes. Susan, are you with us?
Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for calling in. Did you have a question for us?
I do. My question is, I'm wondering if you might have some tips and tricks to have balance in life, because as a woman entrepreneur myself, I have my business completely online with digital marketing, and I find that I'm 24/7 always on. And so the balance becomes really difficult. I wondered if you had any tips or any advice on finding and achieving balance with work and play and relaxation.
As the saying goes, we work 80 hours a week as entrepreneurs, so we don't have to work 40, and I'm certainly guilty of that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Nita?
So I have the same issues. Yeah. So I don't know how much help I'm going to be, but I have a husband who forces me to say, take a break. And there's weekends where I put everything down and everything can wait, and we do stuff where there is no technology. And I think you need that. You come back and you are more refreshed, you're more just effective in general. And so I think there does need to be a time where you turn it off and not worry about, oh, the customer's going to get their shipment late. Don't worry about it. The day or two is not going to ruin your business, but exhaustion will.
Absolutely. And Sonia, as someone who works with entrepreneurs, you must see people on the verge of burnout all the time.
Absolutely. We just hosted a mental health event actually for founders in our community to look at some of these challenges. We have a talent team that's a new innovation within Invest Ottawa, and they talk a lot about work-life harmony and not balance. And so it's that ebb and flow of how you make a rhythm or a routine work with those you love in your family and those who are supporting you, where you might be making trade-offs, you're working together as a team or as a community company, and instead of striving for work-life balance, which many people perceive to be equal fun and career orientation, harmony, what does that look like for you? And it's unique to every individual. We talked a lot earlier about customization, so finding that unique flow is what I would recommend. I am definitely not someone to speak to this, as anyone who knows me will tell you, so I probably need to hand back to Nita.
Yeah. But I also find times where I can multitask, and my daughter is, you know, you really want to spend as much time with as you can with your child, and everything is about your child. And there's times where I brought her to meetings with me. And it's also making sure that I have partners that understand that there's a life that I'm not willing to separate from. And so there's times, and BDC, I will give them props once again. I went to meetings several times when she was very young, and she sat there on her iPad, or she listened and she colored, and people just knew that if they were going to do business with me, it came with a package. And just finding those people that understand that. And I think with social media, it's also just making sure that you remove yourself, because it's 24/7. You could constantly work on it.
iPads make great babysitters, don't they? Thank you so much for calling in, Susan. Sonia, let's go back to you and listing some of the programs and services that you offer at Invest Ottawa. And sort of your strength really lies in customization for every kind of entrepreneur and every kind of situation.
And it's a journey. So Invest Ottawa had has had some bumps in the road, particularly going back over the last several years in terms of how we support women. So we're bringing a very strong focus to targeting how we bring and build that pipeline of women founders through those early stages and into the scale-up companies. Our Pre-Accelerator program is an innovation that my colleague Nick Quain, who is an entrepreneur himself, our Vice President of Venture Development, has brought forward. And it really looks at how we can help early stage entrepreneurs build a solid business foundation. It's a 10-week targeted boot camp taught by experts, and it concludes with a big pitch competition where we have an audience assembled, many of the friends and family of those firms there to cheer them on. We have a People's Choice Award, and then we bring together investors from our community that actually select best pitch. And one of the awards is entry into our accelerator program, which is sort of that next phase. It's a 4-stage process, milestones and criteria and very specific activities, milestones and progress that you strive for.
When is this held?
So our next pitch competition is the 5th of December, as a matter of fact, and we are just about to launch a new cohort for health tech. We were just speaking about health. So early stage clinicians, physicians, and innovators from different universities, colleges, and our community that have a health tech innovation that they'd like to bring forward.
And you do this a couple times a year?
We have 4 cohorts per year for Pre-Accelerator, and our Accelerator program, which is targeted to high growth technology companies, is a rolling intake, so you can apply anytime. And then we have now launched our Scale Up platform, which is really focused on high growth companies that grow 15 to 20% year over year. And we mentioned earlier 16% wholly owned Canadian women-led companies. In this country, only 10% are those high growth scaling companies. So we really want to change that demographic and create more women-led companies that are at that scale. Our ultimate goal, together with our colleagues in Waterloo and Toronto, is to help 30 firms cross the $100 million line in terms of revenue. And so the programs and services we're offering there are very specialized to the specific needs of a scaling company. For example, in many cases, it might be IP challenges. How do I get the CE mark in Europe that allows me to sell my medical device abroad? There are very specialized experts that can help guide that process and open up those markets, enabling them to generate revenue, acquire investment, and build and scale their business.
Nita, have you scaled your business outside of Canada yet, or is that a goal?
I have.
Yeah.
So I've just started in the U.S. and you know, this is when MTV came calling, and I was very surprised. I thought, I'm a mom in Barrhaven, and how did they know that I even exist? Because I hadn't actively gone searching for them.
How did they find you?
I don't know. I still to this day don't know. And I think it was through social media, and it was just through different things like that. But when I did go down, I realized that there is a huge market in the U.S. But I also wanted to make sure that I had a real handle on the Canadian market first. So I'm 4 years in now, and I think I've got a much better handle on the Canadian market, and I'm ready to move down to the U.S. So I've just started, but it's time. It's time to grow.
How do you feel about Ottawa as a place to start a business?
Oh, geez, that's a tough one.
It's a big question. We only have 30 seconds left, so I'll let you ponder that, and we'll maybe come back to that after the break. And of course, Sonia, I want to hear more about some of the programs that are ongoing and what the landscape looks like in Ottawa. I know there's lots of exciting things going on. I, of course, also want to touch on the topics of diversity and what it means to be a woman of color as an entrepreneur, because that adds another level of complexity. So lots more when we come back after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're talking about female entrepreneurship with Nita Tandon and Sonia Shorey. Sonia, we were talking about the wealth of resources that's available at Invest Ottawa, lots of different sessions that you can basically register in for free online. What are some of the most popular and useful sessions for female entrepreneurs that are available?
So in the last 18 months, we assembled a subcommittee of our board with investors and industry leaders who are really focused on our shared goals to make Ottawa the best region in the world for women founders to launch, scale, and grow a successful, strong, sustainable commercial business. As part of that, we have 4 prongs, I guess I would call it. Promote, connect, educate, and enable. And a large part of the sessions that we see tremendous traction on, of course, target investment. So only 2% of venture capital on planet Earth is actually dedicated to women-owned or led businesses. That's a statistic that must change. When you look more broadly at people of color, Indigenous entrepreneurs, and other minority-based entrepreneurs, it doesn't even exist. It's negligible.
Is it because most venture capitalists are men?
I think it's a very complex challenge, and certainly the VC industry is most certainly male-dominated. But of course, with all the momentum that's happening here in Ottawa, around the world, really, we're starting to see a really large push to change that demographic. And so what we're doing to try and address that is, A, working with the Capital Angel Network to bring more women angels into our ecosystem. It's proven that the more women are on the decision-making side of investment, the more women get funded. So that's led by Jennifer Francis here. We're hosting Ask Me Anything sessions with different types of investors, including Michelle McBain of Stand Up Ventures, which is the only VC fund in this country that brings that women-based female founder lens to their investments. I think the opportunity to ask questions in a confidential setting where people are comfortable and creating that comfort and the confidence to ask really difficult questions of those investors is key to helping educate, equip, and helping them to pursue that investment at the right time. But there's a host of different customized sessions that target everything from how to build your business, how to work with IP, how to market, how to generate sales and revenue, and that's really what a business is all about.
You have lots of interesting things coming up with International Women's Week, but before we get to that, we have a caller on the line. Julie, are you with us?
Yes, hi.
Hi, thanks so much for calling in. Did you have a question for us?
I did. Do you think it's important for women in business to kind of network with other women entrepreneurs, or do you think that any networking is a good idea?
Nita, what do you think?
I actually think there's benefit to both, and I think it's excellent to network with women because there's a comfort level. You put your guard is down a little bit more, and you can have some real conversations. But I do think there's a lot to learn from men as well, and I think don't exclude yourself and put yourself in a position where we've got 2 silos working. I think the whole idea is to work better together. And to network on both sides.
Sonia, what have you seen?
I could not agree more. I think you said it beautifully. The ability for men and women to come together and support each other. We need champions and allies. That's a large premise of International Women's Week, is how we pool our collective resources, expertise, in some instances.
And that's coming up in the spring. You've actually sent us an image. Maybe we can pull that up on the screen right now. So you've got lots of interest in that. You said Microsoft called you up this morning.
Yes, they did.
How they can get involved.
So we have over 30 organizations currently, and many of whom were engaged with us last year, where we came together as a community. It was really about harnessing our resources. How do we take all the momentum, and so many organizations in this city are committed to these shared goals, pool them, put a wrapper around it, and create an integrated suite of activities, events, learning opportunities, and tangible opportunities for impact. And I emphasize and underscore that tangible opportunities, something real that women can take away that helps them to grow their business. So we created a suite of events every single day with all our post-secondary institutions, fellow incubators and accelerators, including ELSPAR, spark the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, and a host of companies. And this morning, my good friend Lisa Carroll calling me from Microsoft. With these champions and allies, we can create so much more together. It is really about the power of community. Naomi said it beautifully earlier. And that's really what we're trying to harness, is creating that great opportunity for women, more women leaders across every sector, not simply entrepreneurship and tech, but academia, government, industry, the gamut.
Amazing. Thank you so much for calling in, Julie. Nita, I want to talk to you about diversity as a woman of color. What does the landscape look like for you? What have your experiences been like? I mean, I know diversity is kind of a buzzword these days, but maybe some organizations are more paying lip service. Like, what does the reality look like?
Well, I'll be honest. My family immigrated to Canada when I was a year old. So I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Ottawa. I never really felt racism. I felt, there was comments that were sort of ignorant comments. That there was comments, but there was never a meanness, or I was never not given an opportunity until I started my business. And I just felt like there was a lot of preconceived notions of what you are able to do. And if you work within an organization, that's great, but for you to start one, there was more challenges. And I just found I would just navigate and find someone who does support. But there were a few
So what were some of the things, can you give us an example of some of the situations you faced that you maybe didn't expect?
Well, I mean, I did have someone ask if my husband would sign
Co-sign the papers.
And at home, I'm the one that takes care of all the finances, but still it's to look to the husband. My husband is Caucasian, so I think sometimes there's this view that he's able to take care of more things than I can. I don't have a family history that has been in Canada for a long time, and so there's this view that if you come from business and several lines in Canada, that you are more secure. But my view is, if you ask any immigrant how they've survived in Canada, they've survived on very little money, and they've done a lot. And so I think immigrants as a whole have a skill set that is needed for starting a business. You have very little money. You need to do a lot with it. You need to cut areas. You need to, build a network.
You need to be resourceful.
You need to be resourceful. And so I really think there needs to be a conversation had on both sides. I don't think it was a mean. I think it was a, I can't even think of what the word is, but sort of
ignorant?
Yeah, I mean, it was more, they just didn't really think of what they were saying or what they were doing. It's more like unconscious
bias?
That's exactly what it was. It's an unconscious bias. I had recently where I was looking for space, and most warehouse space is owned by men. And so here I was, a woman wanting warehouse space, and suddenly there was this, well, you can't possibly need, what is your business now and where are you? And so I don't think they've ever asked that question for a man.
So you feel you have to prove yourself because you're a woman, and then you have to prove yourself on top of that because you're a woman of color.
Right.
Interesting. And what has it been like for you in the Ottawa entrepreneurship space? You mentioned earlier that it is pretty heavily tech focused.
Right. It is very heavy tech focused, and so I find, when I went in, and I'll be honest, it was with Invest Ottawa that I went in originally, and I thought the courses were excellent. So I did take what I needed from it, but when I really wanted to talk about my business, there was sort of this glossy-eyed, like, oh, how nice, you're doing Tupperware. Oh, have you thought of doing, it's not a sexy product. It doesn't have that allure before you see it. And so no one really wants to jump in on it.
It doesn't do your laundry for you.
No, and so it just, no one could see the dream as big as I saw it. And I did find that I was networking in Toronto much more, and I found a network there that suited my needs, which is really sad because in Ottawa you'd think that you should come here, and I tried very hard, but I didn't find my tribe, as someone had mentioned before. I didn't find my connection until today, so I'm very happy you've done this session because I found some great connections here.
I'm really glad to hear that. We have a caller on the line. Renee, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for calling in. What was your question?
Hi, I'm just phoning to ask some of you guys, what advice would you give to a young woman coming out of school with a master's degree looking to start their own e-business?
What do you think, Sonia?
So we would invite you to come and see us at Invest Ottawa. We would be happy to partner you up with an advisor that was targeted to the type of e-business that you would be looking to launch. We have peer groups that you can participate in, and as well, of course, our free education sessions, and then possibly even entering into our pre-accelerator program, depending upon the nature of your business. I think those would be some excellent ways that we would love to help you, and even just having the conversation to see if entrepreneurship is a path that you would like to pursue. It takes a lot of courage and resilience. I'm inspired by all the women here tonight and the women that work with us at Bayview and Invest Ottawa. Come and see us, and let's have a chat, and let's jump in.
Nita, do you have anything to add to that?
I would say really give Shopify a shot, because they've made it very easy. And so for someone like myself who didn't have a tech background, I didn't grow up with computers, I didn't, technology, I actually started social media after I started my business because I thought it was important. So I would say start with Shopify. They make it very simple for you, and you can test the waters of what products to market. You can change it. You can really get to know your business quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does that answer your question, Renee?
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling in. Now, we only have a couple minutes before the end of our show and the end of our time together. Sonia, did you have any last little plugs that you wanted to make about Invest Ottawa?
Well, do you know what? We are really thrilled to be part of the Elevate International Conference that's coming up at Parliament Hill on Friday, and we're addressing diversity and inclusion very specifically and looking at economic empowerment, how we can leverage and boost up more women entrepreneurs and women-led firms to generate what many believe could be $41 to $81 billion in addition to the GDP here in Canada. So we've got scaling companies like UI, Ascent Compliance, we have Shopify. Shav is our subcommittee chair, and she's the Global Diversity and Inclusion Lead globally for Shopify, as well as some incredible colleagues of mine from Invest Ottawa who are entrepreneurs themselves. It's going to be a fantastic session, and so there might be a few seats left. I can hear Solange saying, what are you doing? But we would be delighted, because it's an opportunity, a platform, as someone said earlier, to give a spotlight, to shine a spotlight on actionable insight, opportunity, and how we can work together to build Canada's economy while building incredible women-owned business.
And a lot of big names there, and of course, Invest Ottawa has an open door policy year-round.
Absolutely.
Anyone can walk in. Most or all of the resources are free?
Yes, in many cases, there's a few programs that are small just because of sustainability to make sure. We're talking, a couple $100 for certain types of boot camps, but we would be delighted, and we are on a journey, so we are committed to continually strengthening our support for all entrepreneurs, and in particular for women-based founders, as well as those from every single walk of life. Come and talk to us if you have ideas. We want to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Any last parting thoughts, Nita? If there's a woman of color who's watching this and wants to start her own business, any words of wisdom?
I would say just jump in and do it. And if you don't want to risk everything, I think start slow and build. Really test the waters and see how far you can go. And I think as you do face a couple of obstacles and roadblocks, don't let those deter you, because there's so many people that do step forward and do help you. So it may not be the path that you think it will be, but there are people to help. And
where can we find you?
You can find me, the website is delchinistainless.com. And if you want to find me on Instagram, it's Nita_Tandon on Instagram. And
perfect. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on your career. Thank you so much to you ladies both for joining us. It's been a real pleasure talking about female entrepreneurship with you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you, our viewers, for joining us tonight. We'll see you in the studio next week. Have a great evening.